Branded an ugly college dropout and abandoned by my family 5 years later, I returned for my sister's graduation. Her professor approached me, and what happened next left them speechless. The day my own family called me worthless, a college dropout, and slammed the door in my face, it felt like my entire world shattered. But 5 years later, I walked back into their meticulously crafted perfect life, not for forgiveness, but to burn their lies to the ground. My name is Athena. I was 22 that day, watching from the window as my younger sister, Cassandra, basked in the warmth of our parents' laughter. I was the family's dirty little secret, the disappointment they wished away. Too plain, too quiet, too much of a failure to ever earn their love. Cassandra? Oh, she was their masterpiece, beautiful, brilliant, and their golden child always. Growing up in Nashville, I learned early and brutally that our family's love came with a price tag. My parents, these pillars of success in the business world, had a picture-perfect vision. We were supposed to be extensions of their status, beautiful, accomplished, flawless. Cassandra slipped right into that mold, effortlessly gleaming. Me? I just never quite fit. And they never let me forget it. I remember the exact moment it all truly began to crumble. I was in my 3rd year of college, utterly lost in graphic design. Creating art, playing with colors, bringing ideas to life on a screen, it wasn't just a major, it was my entire soul's passion. But my parents? They despised it. They wanted me in business or law, something prestigious they could flaunt at their endless country club dinners. Graphic design is for people who can't do real work, my father scoffed, his voice dripping with contempt when I tried to explain my major. You're just throwing our money away on this nonsense. My mother was a surgeon with her words. She never missed an opportunity to carve me up, always holding Cassandra, who was pre-med, as the shining example. Your sister is going to be a doctor. What are you going to be, Athena? Someone who makes pretty pictures for a living. The constant chipping. That's what it felt like. Every phone call home was an interrogation. Every visit, a relentless lecture about my choices, my appearance, my utterly pathetic future. They made it painstakingly clear that I was nothing short of a colossal disappointment. And when I started drowning in depression and anxiety, their wisdom was simply, stop being so dramatic. When my grades inevitably slipped, they threatened to cut me off entirely. The pressure became a suffocating weight. My mental health wasn't just slipping, it was free-falling. I stopped going to classes. I stopped eating. I stopped believing I was even worthy of taking up space. Then, one particularly dark, endless night, I made the decision. I would leave college. Not because I wanted to, not because I was giving up on my passion, but because I literally couldn't see any other way out of the suffocating darkness. When I finally told my parents, the explosion was instantaneous, primal. My mother screamed, her voice tearing through me for what felt like hours, about how I'd embarrassed them, how I was throwing my life away, how I was too stupid to see the monumental mistake I was making. My father? He just looked at me with pure, cold disgust and calmly, chillingly, said I was no longer his daughter. And Cassandra, she stood there, leaning against the doorway, a smug, satisfied smirk playing on her lips, watching the whole ugly spectacle unfold. She'd always loved seeing me fail. It was like my darkness made her light shine even brighter. They gave me 1 week. One single week to pack my life into boxes and vanish. No money, no roof over my head, no family to catch me. I was utterly, terrifyingly alone. And yeah, I was absolutely petrified. I ended up couch surfing at friends' places for months, grabbing any job I could find just to survive, waitressing, retail, cleaning offices into the dead of night. Anything. I truly felt like I'd hit rock bottom, and there was no ladder, no hand reaching out to pull me up. But then, during those brutal, dark months, something inside me ignited. Maybe it was pure, unadulterated anger, hot and searing. Maybe it was the sheer desperation to prove them wrong. Or maybe, just maybe, it was my own stubborn, bruised spirit refusing to break. I decided right then, I wasn't going to let them define me anymore. I wouldn't accept their pathetic version of who I was supposed to be. I poured every single dollar I earned into myself. I saved meticulously. I taught myself advanced design software using every free online tutorial I could find, late into the night. I built a portfolio in every spare moment, reaching out to small businesses, practically begging to design their logos and websites for next to nothing, just for the experience. And slowly, agonizingly, inch by painstaking inch, I started to build something real. It wasn't easy. There were nights I went to bed hungry because I had to choose between food and internet access. There were countless times I wanted to quit, when that insidious voice in my head, the one that sounded suspiciously like my mother, sneered that I was a fool to think I could ever succeed without them. But I kept going. I clawed my way forward. And eventually, things started to shift. My work soared. My clients grew. My rates multiplied. I moved from crashing on couches to a tiny studio, then to my own one-bedroom apartment. I went from a struggling freelancer to starting my very own design agency. 5 years melted away. 5 years of working myself to the bone, of proving every single person wrong, of finally becoming someone I could look at in the mirror and be profoundly proud of. I'd severed all ties with my family, changed my number, moved across the city. I wanted nothing, absolutely nothing, to do with them. Then, on a deceptively warm spring evening, a message popped up on social media from an old high school friend. It was an invitation. Cassandra's graduation party. My sister was finally a doctor, and apparently, my family was throwing a massive, opulent celebration at an upscale venue downtown. The invitation felt like a cruel joke, a meticulously laid trap. Why, after all this time, would they want me there? But as I sat there, staring at the glowing screen, something inside me clicked. Maybe it was time. Time to face them again. Not as the shattered, desperate girl they'd tossed aside, but as the woman I had forged from the wreckage. I wrestled with that decision for an entire agonizing week. Part of me screamed to ignore it, to keep living my peaceful life, unburdened by their toxicity. I'd built something incredible without their help, without their approval. Why go back now? But another part, a deeper, hungrier part, that part burned to show them I hadn't just survived without them. I had thrived. The party was set for a Saturday night at one of Nashville's most exclusive event spaces. I knew, without a shadow of a doubt, that my parents would spare no expense. They lived for these displays, for proving to the world how successful they were, how perfect their family was. I decided to go. Not because I craved their approval anymore. Not because I harbored some ridiculous hope for a tearful reunion. No. I went because I wanted to look them dead in the eye, as an equal, and show them precisely what they had thrown away. The days leading up to the party were surreal. My mind kept dragging me back to my childhood, to memories I'd buried so deep I thought they were gone forever. I remembered being 8, beaming with pride, showing my parents a drawing my teacher had praised, even hung on the wall. My mother barely spared it a glance before telling me to do my homework. My father didn't even bother to look up from his newspaper. I remembered being 13, overhearing my mother on the phone, her hushed, venomous words about how I wasn't developing as quickly as Cassandra, how I was destined to be the plain daughter. How she just hoped I'd at least be smart enough to compensate for my lack of looks. And then, at 16, my first design award, rushing home, bursting with excitement, only for my parents to wave it away because, of course, Cassandra had made the honor roll again. Every single memory, every single instance, hammered home the same crushing message. I wasn't enough. I would never be enough. Not for them. But now, sitting in the beautiful apartment I had paid for with my own work, surrounded by the success I had built from absolutely nothing, a profound realization washed over me. Their opinion? It didn't matter anymore. I had finally, truly, proven myself to the one person who actually counted, myself. The evening of the party finally arrived. I spent hours getting ready, not to impress anyone, but to armor myself, to feel utterly, undeniably confident. I chose a simple, elegant black dress I'd saved for, did my makeup meticulously, styled my hair with purpose. When I finally looked in the mirror, it wasn't the scared girl staring back. It was someone strong, someone who had faced down her demons and survived. The venue was beyond extravagant, just as I'd imagined. Crystal chandeliers glittered overhead. White flowers cascaded from every surface. A string quartet played softly in the corner, while servers in crisp uniforms floated through the crowd with champagne and appetizers. It was the epitome of the over-the-top display my parents adored. I arrived fashionably late, giving myself a moment to simply observe. The room was packed. I recognized snippets of my childhood, extended family, old family friends, my parents' business associates. Everyone was dressed to the nines, all smiles, all there to toast Cassandra. My sister stood at the absolute center of it all, radiant in a stunning white dress, looking every inch the successful medical school graduate. She was laughing, her hand resting on the arm of a handsome man I didn't recognize, probably her latest boyfriend. My parents, of course, flanked her, beaming with unadulterated pride. A familiar, aching tightness squeezed my chest. That was supposed to be me. I was supposed to be the one they were proud of. But I'd failed their impossible expectations, and they'd discarded me like I meant nothing. I took a deep, steadying breath and stepped further into the room. A few people glanced my way, but no one recognized me. 5 years had sculpted me. I was thinner, yes, but more importantly, I was composed, carrying myself with an undeniable quiet strength. The scared, broken college dropout was gone. In her place, a survivor. I made my way to the bar, ordering a glass of wine, needing something to steady my nerves. As I waited, a familiar voice cut through the hum of conversation behind me. "Athena, is that really you?" I turned, and there he was, Professor Howard, one of my favorite teachers from college, the one professor in the arts department who had genuinely seen and encouraged my design work before I'd vanished. He looked older, his hair grayer, but those kind, intelligent eyes were exactly the same. Professor Howard, I said, genuine surprise making my voice catch. What are you doing here? I teach at the medical school now, he explained, a gentle smile. Cassandra was one of my students. Brilliant girl, very driven. He paused, his gaze thoughtful, searching my face. I heard you left school, Athena. I always wondered what happened to you. You had such undeniable talent. His words, so simple, hit me with a force I hadn't expected. Here was someone who had believed in me, seen real potential in my work, and I had simply disappeared without a trace. I had some personal issues back then, I admitted, choosing my words carefully. But I'm doing really well now. I actually own my own design agency. His face lit up. Really? That's absolutely wonderful. I always knew you had it in you. Your work was exceptional, even back then. We talked for a few more minutes, catching up on the lost years. He seemed genuinely, truly happy to see me thriving, which I realized was more than I could say for most people in this glittering room. As our conversation ended and Professor Howard excused himself, I felt a strange mix of gratitude for his kindness and a renewed, sharp awareness of just how isolated I felt in this crowd that was supposed to be my family. I drifted through the party like a ghost, an uninvited specter. People looked through me, their eyes passing over my face without a flicker of recognition. I found myself near the dessert table when I heard my mother's voice, a little too loud, a little too saccharine. She was holding court with a gaggle of women, all perfectly coiffed, all draped in designer clothes, all sporting the same practiced, empty smiles. We're just so proud of Cassandra, my mother gushed. Medical school was challenging, but she never, ever gave up. She's always been so determined, so focused, unlike some people. The emphasis on those last words, the subtle venom in her tone, it was undeniably aimed at me. A raw, hot anger ignited in my chest. Then, my father chimed in, joining their circle. Yes, we're very fortunate. Both of our daughters have done so well. Cassandra is going to be a doctor, and our eldest is very successful in business. I froze. What was he even talking about? They had disowned me. They had told me I was nothing. And now, they were casually lying to their friends, pretending everything was perfectly fine, pretending they were proud of me. One of the women, oblivious, asked, "Oh, I didn't know you had another daughter. Where is she? I'd love to meet her." My mother's smile stretched, thin and brittle. "Oh, she couldn't make it tonight. Work commitments, you know how it is." The lie was so smooth, so utterly practiced, it made my stomach churn. How long had they been spinning this fiction? How many times had they painted me back into their perfect family portrait, only to conveniently remove me when I was a burden? I wanted to march over there, right then, and scream the truth, expose them to every single person in that room. But something held me back. A public outburst would only make me look bitter, unhinged, exactly the problem child they always claimed. I needed to be smarter. I needed proof. I decided to watch, to listen, to gather every shred of their carefully constructed deceit. I moved through the room, piecing together the narrative they'd sold to their social circle. It was elaborate. I was working abroad, too busy with my thriving career to attend family events, always sending my regards. They'd created an entire, impressive fictional life for me, conveniently absent, while simultaneously taking credit for it. The realization made me sick. They wanted the credit for raising two successful daughters without having to actually deal with the inconvenient, discarded one. As I processed this bitter truth, Cassandra walked right past me. Her eyes flicked over my face, completely devoid of recognition, before she moved on, heading towards a group of her medical school friends. My own sister. The person I'd grown up with, shared secrets and fights with, now looked at me and saw nothing. I was invisible. I followed, keeping my distance, a morbid curiosity compelling me. They were all congratulating her, talking about their bright futures. Cassandra was vibrant, soaking up every drop of admiration. "Your family must be so proud," one friend commented. Cassandra's laugh tinkled. "They are. My parents have always been so supportive. They really pushed me to be my best." Another friend asked, "Do you have siblings?" "I have an older sister," Cassandra said, her voice dropping, almost a performance. "But we're not close. She made some really bad choices a few years ago, and we don't really talk anymore. Honestly, we have no idea what she's even doing now." Bad choices. That's how she dismissed my mental breakdown, my crushing depression, my desperate fight for survival. Bad choices? That's so sad, her friend murmured sympathetically. Cassandra shrugged, a delicate, practiced gesture. Some people just can't handle pressure, you know? My parents did everything they could for her, but she just threw it all away. Dropped out of college and basically disappeared. It's a shame. The casual, cutting cruelty of her words pierced me deeper than I expected. She spoke about me like a stranger, like my struggles meant nothing, like the years of emotional abuse from our parents had been my fault, entirely. Every fiber of my being wanted to unleash hell on her right then. To tell her exactly what I'd been doing for the past 5 years, to shove my success in her smug face. But I held back. The night I knew was still young. There would be time for revelations. I moved away from Cassandra's group, needing space. Just then, Professor Howard reappeared, this time with a distinguished, middle-aged man in an expensive suit. Athena, Professor Howard said warmly, I want you to meet someone. This is Dr. Gregory, the dean of the medical school. I was just telling him about your incredible design agency. Dr. Gregory extended his hand, and I shook it, a strange sense of surrealism washing over me. Pleasure to meet you, he said, a genuine smile on his face. Professor Howard speaks very highly of your work. Thank you, I managed, surprised by the professor's quiet, powerful advocacy. Actually, Dr. Gregory continued, his gaze sharp and assessing, we've been looking for someone to redesign our medical school's website and branding materials. Our current design is quite outdated. Would you be interested in discussing a potential contract? My heart leapt. This wasn't just an opportunity, this was a major opportunity, the kind that could catapult my agency to a whole new level. And it was happening here, at my sister's extravagant graduation party, while my own family acted like I didn't even exist. I would be very interested, I said, forcing my voice to remain professional despite the frantic drumming of my pulse. We exchanged information, and Dr. Gregory promised to reach out the following week to schedule a formal meeting. As he walked away, Professor Howard simply smiled at me. Opportunities often come when we least expect them, Athena, he said gently. I nodded, but my mind was already racing. This night, I realized, had just taken an intensely unexpected turn. Things were about to get very interesting indeed. After Dr. Gregory left, I felt an overwhelming need for air. I excused myself from Professor Howard and stepped onto the expansive terrace, the cool night breeze a welcome balm against my flushed skin. The city lights of Nashville twinkled below, and I leaned against the railing, trying to calm the tempest of emotions raging inside me, anger, vindication, confusion, a strange satisfaction. Then, footsteps. I turned to see a woman I didn't recognize, elegant in her 50s, with perfectly styled gray hair. She smiled warmly. Needed a break from the crowd, she asked, joining me. Something like that, I replied. I'm Helen, she introduced herself. I'm a colleague of Cassandra's father. My father's colleague. I kept my expression carefully neutral. Nice to meet you. You look so familiar, Helen mused, studying my face. Have we met before? Perhaps in photos? I don't think so, I said, trying to keep my voice even. Her eyes suddenly widened. Oh my goodness. Are you Athena? My stomach plummeted. Someone did recognize me. Yes, I whispered. Helen's face bloomed with genuine warmth. I've heard so much about you. Your parents mentioned you're doing wonderfully in business, working overseas. I'm so glad you could make it tonight. Cassandra must be absolutely thrilled. The sheer audacity of their lies. It was even more intricate than I'd imagined. I didn't correct her. I just managed a small, strained smile. Your father showed me some photos of your work last month, Helen continued, completely oblivious. Such beautiful designs. He was so proud. He keeps a portfolio of your projects in his office, you know. This was too much. My father kept a portfolio of my work? The same man who had called my passion worthless nonsense, who had disowned me for pursuing it. That's surprising, I managed, a razor-sharp edge in my voice that, thankfully, Helen didn't seem to notice. Oh, he talks about you all the time, she chirped. Both his daughters so accomplished. You must have such wonderful parents to have raised such successful children. I felt physically ill. They were taking credit for my success, the success I'd clawed my way to entirely without them, after they'd thrown me away like garbage. They were using my accomplishments to bolster their own pristine reputation, all while maintaining the elaborate charade that I was simply too busy for them. Excuse me, I said abruptly, I need to find the restroom. I left Helen standing on the terrace, my hands shaking uncontrollably with rage. I needed to confront them. I needed to tear down their carefully constructed facade right now, in front of all their adoring friends. I needed everyone to know the truth. But then, a cold thought cut through the fury. Confronting them publicly, without absolute proof, would only make me look like the bitter, unstable problem child they always painted me as. They'd twist it, spin it. I needed to be smarter. I needed concrete evidence. I pulled out my phone, heart pounding, and started recording voice memos, quietly documenting every lie I'd heard, every false compliment, every piece of their sickening narrative. As I recorded, I saw Cassandra break away from her group, heading down a secluded hallway that led to the private conference rooms. A wild idea sparked. I followed her, keeping my distance, my blood thrumming. She slipped into one of the smaller rooms. I waited a beat, then gently pushed the door open just a crack. Cassandra was on her phone, her back to me. "I know, Mom," she was saying, her voice low and conspiratorial. "I'm handling it." No one's asked about her specifically. Everyone believes the story about her working overseas. She paused, listening. What if she shows up? Mom, she doesn't even know about the party. We didn't invite her. Even if she somehow found out, she wouldn't have the guts to come back after 5 years. My heart hammered against my ribs. They hadn't just accidentally not invited me. They had deliberately planned to exclude me, and then actively lied about my absence. The trust fund. Cassandra continued, her voice rising slightly. Yes, I spoke to the lawyer last week. Since she's been out of contact for so long, and with the documentation of her dropping out and cutting ties, he's confident we can claim her portion was forfeited. It'll take some time, but he's pretty sure we can make it work. It felt like I'd been sucker punched. My grandmother had set up trust funds for both of us before she died. I'd honestly never given mine a second thought, too consumed with simply surviving. But apparently, my family had been thinking about it quite a lot. They weren't just taking credit for my success. They were actively, maliciously trying to steal money that was rightfully mine. Cassandra laughed then, a high, tinkling sound. Don't worry, Mom. She made her choice when she dropped out. She chose to throw her life away. That money is far better off with someone who actually did something with their education. Someone who made you proud. The words, she chose to throw her life away, echoed, vibrating with a chilling, casual cruelty. As if my mental breakdown had been a choice. As if their years of emotional abuse had played no part. As if I had wanted to struggle, to suffer, to fight for every scrap of stability. I backed away from the door, my entire body trembling so violently I could barely hold my phone. But I had it. I had recorded the entire, damning conversation. Proof. Proof of their lies, their manipulation, their cold-blooded plan to defraud me. I stumbled back into the main hall in a daze. Everything I thought I knew about this evening, about my family, had twisted into something grotesque. This wasn't just about them being embarrassed by a college dropout. This was about cold, hard money. This was about them completely rewriting history so they could not only claim my inheritance, but also maintain their perfect, shining image. I needed to talk to someone. I needed help. I pulled out my phone and texted Jordan, my business partner. He was the only person who knew the full, ugly truth of my past. The message was simple, stark, asterisk need legal help. Family trying to steal inheritance. Have recording of admission. What do I do? Asterisk his response came almost instantly. Asterisk do not confront them yet. Leave the party. Meet me at the office tomorrow morning. Bring everything you have. We'll handle this properly. Asterisk he was right. I needed to be strategic, surgical. But leaving now? It felt impossible. I had come here to face them and I wasn't going to run away again. Not tonight. I took another deep, fortifying breath, pushed the terror down, and walked back into the glittering heart of the party. The evening was reaching its peak. My father, with his most practiced, charming smile, climbed onto a small stage that had been set up. Good evening, everyone, he boomed into the microphone. Thank you all for coming to celebrate this momentous occasion. Tonight, we honor my daughter, Cassandra, who has worked tirelessly to achieve her dream of becoming a doctor. The crowd applauded. Cassandra stood beside my mother, radiating joy. As a father, my dad continued, there's nothing more rewarding than watching your children succeed. My wife and I have been blessed with 2 remarkable daughters, both intelligent, both driven, both determined to make their mark on the world. My jaw clenched so tight I thought it would crack. He was doing it again. Pretending. Cassandra has always been focused and dedicated, he went on, even as a child. And tonight, as she celebrates her graduation from one of the finest medical schools, we couldn't be prouder. More applause. I saw Professor Howard, then Dr. Gregory, watching from the crowd. Our other daughter, Athena, couldn't be here tonight due to work commitments overseas, my father said smoothly, his voice unwavering. But she sends her love and congratulations to her sister. Athena has built a successful design business and travels extensively for work. We're proud of both our girls and the women they've become. The sheer ease with which he spun these falsehoods was staggering. He delivered them with such conviction, I almost believed him myself. Almost. Family is everything, my father concluded, raising his glass. And tonight we celebrate not just Cassandra's achievement, but the strength of family bonds that support us through life's challenges. To Cassandra. The crowd echoed him, glasses clinking. Mine remained firmly at my side. I stood there, watching him step down and embrace my sister, watching my mother wipe a faint tear from her eye, watching them bask in this perfect family moment built entirely on a crumbling foundation of lies. Professor Howard, as if drawn by an invisible thread, found his way back to me. Lovely speech, he commented, a hint of curiosity in his kind eyes. Though I'm surprised your sister couldn't make it. I didn't even know you had a sibling until tonight. I looked at him, really looked at him. He wasn't trying to trick me, he was genuinely confused. That's interesting, I said slowly, my voice carefully controlled. Because I am his other daughter. Professor Howard's eyes widened, a dawning comprehension in their depths. He looked from me to my father, who was still accepting congratulations, then back to me. I don't understand. He just said you were overseas. He lied, I said, the words simple, stark, but dripping with years of suppressed pain. I'm right here. I've been here all evening. And no one in my family has recognized me because they haven't seen me in 5 years. Not since they disowned me for dropping out of college. The professor stared, visibly processing, connecting the horrifying dots. But he just said he was proud of you. He said you have a successful business. I do have a successful business, I clarified, but he has absolutely no idea what I've been doing since they kicked me out. They've been fabricating stories about me just to save face with their friends. Professor Howard looked utterly shocked. That's unconscionable. Why would they do that? Because they care more about their reputation than they do about me, I said, the bitterness a raw, sharp taste on my tongue. Before Professor Howard could respond, Dr. Gregory, sensing the sudden tension, approached. Everything all right here? He asked, his brow furrowed. Professor Howard looked at me, a silent question in his eyes, giving me the choice. I made a split-second decision. Dr. Gregory, I said, my voice steady, I need to be honest with you about something before we move forward with any business discussions. He looked intrigued, his professional curiosity piqued. Go ahead. My full name is Athena, my last name. My last name is the same as Cassandra's because she is, in fact, my sister. I am the daughter my father just mentioned in his speech, the one he said was overseas. Dr. Gregory's friendly interest visibly shifted to open confusion. I don't follow. You're clearly here. You're not overseas. Exactly, I said. My father lied. He's been lying to everyone here about me. The truth is, my parents disowned me 5 years ago when I dropped out of college, largely due to mental health issues they refused to acknowledge. They cut me off completely, told me never to contact them again, and pretended I didn't exist. Until recently. Apparently, when they decided to start telling people I'm successful and busy overseas, they decided to leverage my real success, which they know absolutely nothing about, to make themselves look like good, supportive parents. Dr. Gregory's gaze moved from me, to the stage where my father was still soaking up congratulations, and then back to my face. This is a serious accusation, Athena. It's not an accusation. It's the truth, I said, pulling out my phone. And I have proof. I have a recording of my sister on the phone with my mother from earlier tonight. In it, they discuss how relieved they are that I didn't know about this party and wouldn't show up. They also openly discuss their plans to steal my inheritance, claiming I forfeited it by dropping out and losing contact. Professor Howard's face had gone utterly pale. Athena, this is truly terrible. I had no idea you'd been through such an ordeal. Most people don't, I said, because I've been too busy rebuilding my entire life from scratch rather than airing my family's dirty laundry. But I came here tonight because I wanted to face them, as someone who had succeeded despite them, not because of them. What I didn't expect was to discover they've been lying about me for years and plotting to steal money that rightfully belongs to me. Dr. Gregory was silent for a long, heavy moment, his eyes searching mine. Can you prove you are who you say you are? I pulled out my driver's license and showed it to him, my name, birth date, my Nashville address. All confirming my identity. I believe you, he said finally, his voice grave. And I'm appalled by what you've shared. However, I need to think very carefully about how to proceed with our business discussions. This puts me in an awkward position, as your father is a respected colleague, and I've known your family for years. My heart sank. Of course. Their carefully cultivated reputation would always win out over my truth. It always had. But then, Professor Howard spoke up, his voice firm. Dr. Gregory, Athena's family situation has absolutely nothing to do with her professional capabilities. I taught her in college before she left. Her work was exceptional then, and from what she's told me, she's only improved since. Punishing her professionally because her family is dysfunctional would be grossly unfair. Dr. Gregory considered this for a moment, then nodded slowly. You're right. Of course, personal matters shouldn't affect professional opportunities. Athena, I'll be in touch next week as planned. What your family has done is between you and them. Your work speaks for itself. A wave of relief washed over me, but it was short-lived. I saw my mother heading directly towards us, her face arranged in a welcoming, social smile. She was bringing someone with her, undoubtedly to introduce to the dean. Dean Gregory, my mother called out, her voice bright, as she approached. I wanted to introduce you to some of our closest family friends. She stopped dead when she reached us, her eyes finally landing on my face. For a fleeting second, I saw a flicker of recognition, then confusion, then something that looked like pure, unadulterated panic. Athena, she whispered, the color draining from her face. Hello, Mother, I said, my voice unnervingly calm. Lovely party, though I noticed I wasn't invited. My mother's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. Her eyes darted between Dr. Gregory, Professor Howard, and me, desperately trying to find a way to salvage the rapidly sinking ship. "What are you doing here?" she finally managed to ask, her voice tight, brittle. "I was invited by a friend," I replied, my voice carrying just enough for those nearby to hear. "Though I've been here for over an hour now, and this is the first time anyone in my family has recognized me." "Interesting, isn't it?" My mother's eyes darted around nervously. People were definitely starting to notice the tension, the sudden silence. "We should discuss this privately," she hissed, reaching out to grab my arm. I stepped back, avoiding her touch. "Why?" I asked, my voice ringing clear and loud enough that several heads snapped in our direction. "You've been discussing me publicly all evening, telling everyone how proud you are of me, how successful I am, how I'm overseas working on my thriving business. Might as well keep it public, don't you think?" "You don't understand." My mother spat, her pleasant facade finally cracking, revealing the fury beneath. "We were trying to protect the family." "Protect the family?" I repeated, louder still, the question laced with bitter disbelief. "Is that what you call disowning your daughter? Abandoning her when she was struggling with her mental health? Kicking her out with absolutely nowhere to go? You made your choice when you dropped out," my mother shrieked defensively. "You threw away everything we gave you." "What you gave me?" My anger, long suppressed, finally surged, hot and uncontrollable. "You gave me criticism, comparison, and conditional love. And when I couldn't handle the pressure anymore, you threw me away like I was nothing." My father appeared then, drawn by the escalating commotion. When he saw me standing there, his face went through the exact same progression as my mother's: recognition, confusion, then utter panic. "Athena," he said, his voice a desperate attempt at control. "This isn't the time or place for this discussion." "Really?" I shot back, a cold, hard edge to my voice. "Because you seem to have plenty to say about me in your speech. All those perfectly crafted lies about how proud you are, about my successful overseas business, about unbreakable family bonds and support. Should we tell everyone the truth, Dad? Should we tell them you haven't spoken to me in 5 years? That you told me I was no longer your daughter?" People were definitely beyond watching now. They were openly staring. Conversations around us had died down completely. I saw Cassandra pushing through the crowd, her face pale with alarm. "What's going on?" she demanded, her voice shrill. "Your sister decided to show up uninvited and create drama at your graduation party," my mother snapped, already trying to control the narrative. "Just like her to try to ruin your special day. Uninvited." I turned to Cassandra, my eyes like ice. "Funny thing about that. I overheard your phone conversation earlier. The one where you told Mom how relieved you were that I didn't know about the party and wouldn't show up? The one where you openly discussed stealing my inheritance." Cassandra's face went utterly white. "I don't know what you're talking about," she stammered, denying frantically. I pulled out my phone again. "I recorded it. Would you like me to play it for everyone here? Let them hear you and Mom plotting to claim I forfeited my trust fund. Let them hear you laugh about how I threw my life away. You're insane." Cassandra spat, her composure completely shattered. "You always were unstable and dramatic." I was struggling. I corrected her coldly, my voice trembling with suppressed fury. "I was depressed and anxious and desperate for help. And instead of supporting me, you mocked me. All of you did. You made me feel utterly worthless until I believed it myself." Professor Howard cleared his throat, his gaze sweeping over the horrified guests. "I think everyone here needs to hear something," he announced, his voice carrying surprising authority. "I taught Athena in college. She was one of the most talented, brilliant students I've ever had. When she left school, I was devastated because I knew she had incredible potential, but I also knew she was struggling with something deeper than just academic stress." He looked directly at my parents, his eyes filled with a quiet condemnation. "A good family would have helped her through that struggle. Instead, from what I'm hearing tonight, you abandoned her when she needed you most. And now you're attempting to take credit for her hard-won success and steal her inheritance. That's not family. That's exploitation." My father's face had turned a furious, mottled red, a mix of anger and mortifying embarrassment. "You have no right to judge our family decisions. You don't know the full story." "Then enlighten us," Dr. Gregory said quietly, his voice cutting through the rising murmurs. Everyone turned to look at him. "I'd very much like to hear your version of events, because right now what I'm hearing paints a very troubling picture indeed." The crowd around us had swelled, people pressing in. Whispers erupted. Phones were out, some openly recording. My parents' meticulously constructed image was falling apart, piece by agonizing piece, and there was absolutely nothing they could do to stop it. My mother, with one last desperate attempt to salvage something, finally spoke, her voice laced with false tragedy. "Athena has always been troubled. We tried everything to help her, but she refused our support. When she dropped out, we were devastated. We gave her space, hoping she'd come back to us, but she just Disappeared. We've been searching for her for years. That's a lie, I said firmly, my voice cutting through hers. You told me never to contact you again. You changed your phone numbers. You made it abundantly clear I was dead to you. I didn't disappear. You erased me. And the only reason you're upset now is because I showed up and ruined the pretty story you've been telling everyone. Just then, Jordan, my business partner, appeared at my elbow. I hadn't even seen him arrive, but the sight of his familiar, steady face brought a surge of overwhelming relief. Everything okay here? Jordan asked, though his tone made it clear he knew the answer was a resounding no. Jordan, I said gratefully, turning to him. These are my parents. Parents, this is Jordan, my business partner. We run Athena Design Agency together. Perhaps you'd like to see the portfolio Dad supposedly keeps in his office? Except you can't, because he doesn't actually have one. Because he has no idea what I've been doing for the past 5 years. Jordan didn't miss a beat. He pulled out his tablet and opened our agency's website, turning the screen so that everyone nearby could see. Athena Design Agency, he announced, his voice calm but undeniably cutting. Founded 3 years ago, currently employs 15 incredibly talented people. Our annual revenue last year was just over $2 million. We have clients all over the country, including several Fortune 500 companies. He swiped through our portfolio, project after project flashing across the screen, sleek website designs, innovative brand identities, powerful marketing campaigns, all my work, all created entirely without a single cent or ounce of support from the family who stood before us. This is what Athena built after you threw her out, Jordan continued, his gaze unwavering on my parents. She started with nothing. She slept on couches. She worked 3 jobs while teaching herself advanced design skills. She saved every single penny until she could afford her own apartment. Then she freelanced relentlessly until she had enough clients to start her own agency. She did all of this alone, and she has been incredibly successful. My mother stared at the screen, her face a mask I couldn't decipher. My father's jaw was clenched so tight I thought it might shatter. Cassandra looked like she'd been slapped. 2 million. My father finally managed, and I heard it then. The raw, naked greed in his voice, even through a shock. That's revenue, not profit, Jordan clarified, but yes, the business is quite successful. Athena is one of the most sought-after designers in Nashville, which makes it particularly galling that you've been taking credit for her success, while simultaneously trying to steal her inheritance. We weren't stealing, my mother protested weakly, her voice trembling. We were simply claiming what was rightfully ours after she abandoned the family. I have a recording that says otherwise, I reminded her, my voice steel. Cassandra was very clear on the phone about the plan to claim I forfeited my trust fund. I'm sure a judge would be very interested to hear it. Professor Howard stepped forward again, his voice resonating with quiet fury. I think what's most disturbing here is the undeniable pattern of behavior. You didn't just kick Athena out when she was vulnerable. You've spent 5 years lying about her, using her success to bolster your own reputation, and now you've attempted to defraud her. This isn't a misunderstanding or a simple family disagreement. This is systematic emotional abuse and outright attempted fraud. Several people in the crowd nodded, their faces grim. I saw some of my parents' most esteemed friends looking at them with expressions ranging from utter confusion to blatant disgust. Their meticulously constructed image was falling apart, not slowly, but rapidly, dramatically, right before everyone's eyes. Dr. Gregory addressed my parents directly, his voice stern. I've known your family for several years. I've always respected you as colleagues and friends, but what I'm hearing tonight is deeply, deeply troubling. If even half of what your daughter says is true, you have behaved abominably. It's all true, I said firmly, my gaze locking onto my father's. Every single word, and I can prove it. I have documentation of their cutting me off. I have the recording of Cassandra's confession. I have witnesses who can testify to my mental state when they abandoned me. And I have 5 years of building a life completely separate from them, with no support or contact whatsoever. My father made one last, desperate attempt to regain control. Athena, you're being vindictive. Yes, we made mistakes. Yes, things were said in anger. But we're still your family. We can work through this privately. Now you want to be private? I asked, my voice rising incredulously, after you publicly lied about me all evening? After you gave that touching speech about unbreakable family bonds and being proud of both your daughters? You don't get to choose when to be public and when to be private based on what's convenient for you. Jordan leaned close to me, his voice a low, urgent whisper. The lawyer is here. I called him right after you texted. He's waiting outside. I nodded, then turned back to my parents, my resolve iron hard. Here's what's going to happen. Tomorrow morning, you're going to meet with my lawyer. You're going to provide complete documentation of the trust fund my grandmother left me. You're going to sign papers stating you have no claim to that money and will not attempt to interfere with my access to it. And you're going to do it quickly and quietly. and if we refuse, my father challenged, his voice trembling with impotent rage. Then I go to every single person here tonight and tell them the full, unvarnished story, I said, my voice cold, lethal. I play them the recording of Cassandra. I provide them with documentation of every single thing you've done. I make sure everyone in your social circle, everyone you do business with, everyone who thinks you're upstanding citizens, knows exactly what kind of people you really are. I will completely destroy the reputation you care about so much. My mother's face had gone from pale to a livid, blotchy red. You wouldn't dare. Try me, I said, my gaze unflinching. I have absolutely nothing left to lose. You already took everything from me once. I rebuilt without you. I don't need your money or your approval. But I'll be damned if I let you steal from me and pretend to be proud parents while doing it. Cassandra finally found her voice, shrill with desperation. This is insane. You show up here after 5 years and threaten us. I didn't threaten you, I corrected, a ghost of a smile touching my lips. I offered you a choice. Sign over what's rightfully mine or face the consequences of your actions. It's really quite simple. Jordan checked his watch. The lawyer is waiting, Athena. We should go. Let them stew. Let them think about their options overnight. I looked at my family one last time. My mother was openly weeping now, though even her tears seemed carefully managed not to ruin her makeup. My father looked utterly furious, but trapped, completely defeated. Cassandra just looked stunned, her perfect graduation party now a public spectacle, a raw, ugly unraveling. Congratulations on your graduation, Cassandra, I said, my voice flat, devoid of emotion. I hope it was everything you dreamed of. Then, I turned and walked towards the exit, Jordan a silent, solid presence beside me, leaving my family standing utterly exposed in the middle of their horrified, whispering guests. The lawyer, Marcus, was waiting in the lobby as promised. He was in his 40s, sharp-eyed, a quiet force of professionalism. Jordan had worked with him before, so I trusted him completely. Athena, Marcus greeted me with a firm handshake. Jordan filled me in on the basics. This is quite a situation. That's one way to put it, I said, still vibrating with the adrenaline of the confrontation. We moved to a quiet corner, and Marcus pulled out a legal pad, ready. I recounted everything, the disowning, the years of calculated lies, the overheard phone conversation about the trust fund, the damning recording I'd made. Do you have documentation of the trust fund? Marcus asked, ever practical. I have copies of the original documents my grandmother's lawyer sent me years ago, I confirmed. I never accessed the money because I wanted to prove I could make it on my own, but I kept all the paperwork. Marcus nodded approvingly. Good. That'll help. And the recording? I played it for him. Cassandra's voice, clear as day, discussing with my mother their insidious plan to claim I'd forfeited the trust fund. Marcus listened intently, making notes. When it finished, he looked up, his expression grim. This is excellent evidence of intent to defraud, combined with their public lies tonight and witness testimony about their treatment of you. We have a strong case, Athena. What happens now? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Now, we move quickly, Marcus said, his tone authoritative. Tomorrow morning, I'll send a formal letter to your parents demanding a meeting. I'll outline what we know and what we are prepared to do if they don't cooperate. Given that their reputation is clearly paramount to them, and considering several respected people witnessed tonight's confrontation, I believe they'll agree to our terms. As for the trust fund, based on what you've told me, your grandmothers will have no conditions about education or contact with family. That money is yours legally, regardless of whether you graduated college or stayed in touch with your parents. Any attempt to claim otherwise is fraud. They know this, which is precisely why they were planning to do it quietly, rather than through proper legal channels. A profound, trembling relief washed over me. So, I can actually get the money? You can and you will, Marcus confirmed. But, Athena, I need to ask, what do you want beyond the money? Do you want to pursue criminal charges for the attempted fraud? Do you want to sue for emotional damages? Do you want to go public with their abhorrent treatment of you? I considered this carefully. A part of me, the bruised and broken part, wanted to burn their lives to the ground, just as they had tried to burn mine. But another part, the stronger, wiser part, just wanted to be free of them, utterly and completely. I want my money, I said finally, my voice firm. I want them to sign legal documents stating they have no claim to it and will never contact me again. And I want them to stop lying about me. They don't get to use my success to make themselves look good anymore. Marcus nodded. That's reasonable and achievable. I'll draft the documents tonight and have them ready for tomorrow's meeting. Jordan put a reassuring hand on my shoulder. You did good in there, Athena. I know that couldn't have been easy. It was terrifying, I admitted, a shaky laugh escaping me, but also absolutely necessary. I've been running from them for 5 years. Tonight, I finally stopped running. We spent another 30 minutes with Marcus, going over every detail and strategy. By the time we finished, it was almost 10 o'clock. The party was likely winding down now. I wonder what stories my family was frantically trying to spin for their remaining guests. As if reading my mind, Jordan's phone buzzed. He looked at the screen, then showed it to me. It was a text from Professor Howard. Asterisk, just wanted you to know that several people came up to me after you left asking about your agency. I gave them your contact information. I think tonight might end up being very good for business. Asterisk, ironically, hilariously, I had to laugh. My family's desperate attempt to maintain their perfect image had spectacularly backfired. Not only had I exposed their lies, but I'd also potentially gained new, high-profile clients in the process. Come on, Jordan said, a kind smile on his face. Let's get you home. You've had enough drama for one night. He drove me back to my apartment, a comfortable one-bedroom in a nice neighborhood, a sanctuary I had worked so incredibly hard to afford. As I unlocked the door and stepped inside, the familiar space felt like a warm embrace. Thank you for coming tonight, I said to Jordan. I don't know what I would have done without you there. That's what partners are for, he said with a grin. Besides, I wouldn't have missed seeing you take down your terrible family for anything. It was epic. After Jordan left, I changed into soft, comfortable clothes and made myself a cup of tea. I sat on my couch, looking around at the life I'd built. Every piece of furniture, every carefully chosen decoration, every comfort in this apartment had been earned through my own relentless hard work. My family had given me nothing, and now I owed them nothing. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. For a moment, my heart seized, thinking it might be one of my parents. But when I opened it, I saw it was from Dr. Gregory. Asterisk, after tonight's revelations, I want you to know that my offer for the medical school project still stands. In fact, I'm more impressed than ever by what you've accomplished. Let's schedule that meeting for next week. You've earned this opportunity. Asterisk, I smiled, a genuine, deep smile, and typed back a response confirming my availability. The meeting with my parents and their lawyer happened 3 days later in Marcus's austere office. I sat beside Marcus on one side of the polished conference table. My parents, Cassandra, and their stoic attorney sat on the other. The tension in the room was so thick you could almost taste it. Their lawyer, an older man named Donald, tried immediately to take control. My clients are willing to discuss a settlement regarding the trust fund, but they want assurances that this matter will remain private. Marcus didn't even blink. Your clients attempted to defraud my client out of money that legally belongs to her. They have no leverage here. We're not negotiating. We're informing them of what will happen. He slid copies of crisp legal documents across the table. These are the terms. First, you will provide complete and immediate access to the trust fund established by Athena's grandmother. Second, you will sign a legal document stating you have no claim to that money, now or ever. Third, you will cease all contact with Athena unless she explicitly initiates it. Fourth, you will immediately stop using her name, her success, or any reference to her in your social or professional circles. My father started to speak, but Marcus held up a firm hand. I'm not finished. If you fail to comply with any of these terms, we will pursue criminal fraud charges. We will also provide copies of the recording and witness statements from the graduation party to your colleagues, friends, and business associates. The choice is entirely yours. Donald looked at the documents, then at my parents. My mother was openly crying now, her tears no longer strategic. My father looked utterly defeated, his face a mask of bitter resignation. Cassandra stared fixedly at the table, refusing to meet my eyes. This is extortion, Donald said weakly, his voice lacking conviction. No, Marcus corrected, his voice like steel. This is justice. Your clients can sign these papers and move on with their lives, minus the money they tried to steal and the daughter they tried to exploit, or they can refuse, and we'll make sure everyone knows exactly what they did. Their reputation will be destroyed, and they'll still lose the trust fund case in court. This way, at least they can maintain some dignity. There was a long, agonizing silence. Finally, my father spoke, his voice hoarse. How much is in the trust fund? That's none of your concern anymore, Marcus said coolly. But for the record, it's enough that Athena will be quite comfortable. More than comfortable, actually. My mother looked at me then, truly looked at me, her eyes red-rimmed and raw. How can you do this to your own family, Athena? My eyes met hers steadily, unflinching. You stopped being my family 5 years ago when you threw me out. I'm just making sure you can't hurt me anymore. We made mistakes, she pleaded, her voice desperate. But we're still your parents. Doesn't that mean anything? It used to, I said quietly, the words aching with old wounds. It used to mean everything. But you taught me that love is conditional. That I'm only worth caring about if I meet your impossible standards. That my pain and struggles don't matter if they're inconvenient for you. You taught me those lessons very well. Cassandra finally spoke, her voice small, a shadow of her usual bravado. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said those things on the phone. You're not sorry you said them, I corrected, my voice unwavering. You're sorry I heard them. And recorded them. There's a difference. Marcus tapped the documents on the table. We need an answer. Sign, or we proceed with public disclosure and legal action. Donald whispered something to my parents, a brief, heated argument in low tones. Finally, my father picked up the pen, his hand trembling slightly. This isn't over, he muttered, signing his name with a flourish of anger. Yes, it is, I replied, my voice a quiet, powerful echo. This is exactly as over as it gets. One by one, they signed the documents. My mother, my father, even Cassandra, who had been listed as a secondary beneficiary in some of the original paperwork. Each signature felt like a colossal weight lifting from my shoulders, a tangible severing of the chains that had bound me. When it was done, Marcus collected the signed papers and made copies for everyone. You'll receive notification when the trust fund transfer is complete, he stated. I expect that will happen within the week. My parents stood to leave, their movement slow, heavy. My mother paused at the door, turning back to me one last time. I hope you'll be happy, Athena, she said, and for a fleeting moment, she almost sounded sincere. I already am, I said, my voice calm, resolute. I have been for a while now. I just had to learn to find it without you. They walked out, leaving me in the sudden, profound quiet of the conference room. Marcus smiled. How do you feel? Free, I said simply, a lightness blooming in my chest. For the first time in my entire life, I feel completely free. The trust fund transfer was completed 5 days later. The amount was substantial, far more than I had ever expected. My grandmother had invested wisely, and the fund had grown significantly over the years. Combined with my already successful business income, I was genuinely wealthy now. But the money wasn't what mattered most. What mattered was that I'd faced the people who had hurt me the most and refused to let them control my narrative, my worth, or my future, ever again. I'd exposed their lies, protected my interests, and cut them out of my life permanently. The medical school contract came through the following week. Dr. Gregory made a point of telling me that the project was mine purely based on merit, not on pity or public drama. My agency's work truly spoke for itself. My parents never recovered their reputation in their social circle. Word spread like wildfire about what had happened at Cassandra's graduation party. Their fair-weather friends distanced themselves, unwilling to associate with people who had treated their own daughter so cruelly. My father's business suffered as partners quietly, but firmly, ended their relationships with him. My mother, utterly humiliated, withdrew from her social clubs, unable to face the judgment. Cassandra completed her medical degree, yes, but she struggled profoundly to find a good residency placement. The recordings and witness statements, now circulating discreetly within the medical community, ensured her ethics were questioned. She eventually moved to another state, desperately trying to start fresh where no one knew her story. They had built their entire lives on appearances and reputation, and when those meticulously constructed facades crumbled, they had absolutely nothing left to stand on. As for me, 6 months later, I stood in my expanded office space, watching my team work on projects that would have seemed utterly impossible just a year ago. The success felt real now, tangible, earned, and completely unshakable. I'd learned that you don't need your family's approval to build a meaningful life. Sometimes, the family you deserve is the one you create for yourself. And sometimes, the very best revenge isn't destruction. It's simply becoming so successful, so happy, so free, that their cruel opinions no longer hold any power over you whatsoever. I'd walked away from them at that graduation party, with my head held high, and I'd never once looked back. That truly was the moment I won.